All right, this lesson is on discrete probability distributions or just probability distributions. We've done frequency distributions. Remember, we did certain things where it said how many people got 1 to 2 text messages per day, how many people got 3 to 5 text messages per day. This is going to be a distribution where it tells you what the probability is of each thing occurring. So the first question is about 4 coins, and it wants to know if we were looking for the coins to be flipped on heads, what would the probability distribution be for that happening? So the first thing I want you to do is list the sample space for the experiment. Essentially, all you're doing is you're listing the outcomes. So there are 4 times we're going to flip the coin. So I'm going to do B first. There's 4 times we're going to flip the coin, and for each one of those times, there are 2 possible outcomes, heads or tails. So it's going to be 2 outcomes here, 2 outcomes here, 2 here, and 2 here. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the 4th power is 16. So there should be 16 possible outcomes. You could make a tree diagram and say you would do heads or tails. After that, you would go heads or tails. After that, heads or tails. And essentially you would list all of the different outcomes. And when you do that, you'll see that there are going to be 16 total branches on the tree. So there should be 16 total outcomes here. Luckily for us, I have found this outcome diagram from the internets. So we will just use that to save time. It wants to know, is it discrete or continuous? It's going to be discrete. And then it wants us to construct a probability distribution for this experiment. So we're going to say that the probabilities for getting heads on a coin would be 0 times, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, or all 4 times. So this is where we're going to use this chart over here. Normally you would have to list all of these outcomes, but we don't have time for that. So in order to flip 4 heads, there's only one way that would happen. So there are 1 out of 16 ways to flip 4 heads in a row. Just like there is one way to do that. If you wanted to get 0 heads and flip all tails, there's only one outcome that gives you all tails. So that's also going to be 1 out of 16. For the other ones, all we're going to do is going to count. So what is the probability that only 1 heads shows up? And you just have to search in this chart and find them. So here's one way. And then start looking where all the tails are. That's 2, 3. That's at 3. So there are 3 ways out of 16 for 1 head to be flipped. For 2 heads, that would be here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 16. And then you could count just to verify. This would be 3 heads. 1, 2, 3, 4. What you do need to do is make sure that the probability column totals to be 1. So when you're adding fractions, remember you keep the denominator, so it should be 16. And then if I add up 1 plus 3 plus 6 plus 4 plus 1, that is that 9? That's 15. Let's see. Did I miss one? I missed one. I missed one down here. So this should have been 5 over 15. And that's how you can check to make sure that you have all of your probabilities accounted for, because this should total to be 1 or 100%. The next thing it wants you to do is make a histogram. A histogram, remember, is just kind of like a bar graph. So we're going to do down here, what's the probability of getting 0? 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is going to all be in 16ths. So let's just make this 8. That'll be your halfway point. Make this 4. So 0 is 1 out of 16. You can kind of just guesstimate. 1 is 3. 2 is 6. 3 is 5. And 4 is 1. So you can kind of see it follows the shape of a bell curve. It's kind of normally distributed, but it's not completely symmetric. But it's also not skewed left or right. Okay? In order to tell if something is a probability distribution, the easiest way to tell is that the probabilities will total to be 1. So I'll do this one, and then you guys are going to do these two on the go formative. So all you're doing is adding your numerators. 2 and 4 is 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 out of 9 is 1 or 100%. So that's all you do. Add them all together. If it's greater than 1 or less than 1, it's not a probability distribution. These are just going to be, if they're discrete or continuous, remember, just go to that video at the top of the go formative if you did not watch that yet already. But essentially anything that can be finitely measured is going to be discrete. And then for these, I don't need you to draw a histogram. Not right now, at least. You should know how to do it in case somehow I can put it on a quiz or a test. But right now, if you could just make the probability chart, all I want you to do is this. The probabilities that a patient will have 0, 1, 2, or 3 medical tests are, and then it gives you the probabilities respectively. Just means in order. And so if you do this, you'd be able to figure out, what's the probability that the patient has had at least 2 tests. Well, at least 2 tests is going to be 2 or more. So the probability would be 4 out of 15. Or 26.7%. Okay, so then these you're going to do, just make a chart, and then I'm going to ask you questions on the go formative about the chart. That will essentially be like number 5. So I'll do this one with you so you know how to do it. And then that's it for today. The probability that x equals 2, that's the first thing we don't know. But remember, this has to total to be 1. So if you add up all of these numbers, you get 0.89. So then if you take that away from 1, you get 0.11. So the probability it's 2 is 11%. You could just put 0.11. The probability is less than 2. So now you're just adding up the probabilities from the chart. So less than 2 would be here. What is that? 79.79. Less than or greater. I'm sorry, less than or equal to 2. Put the 11 in there. Less than or equal to 1. Less than or equal to 1 is the same thing as being less than 2. Greater than 2 is just these two guys. And then x is 3 or 4 is the same thing as being greater than 2. So it's going to be these two numbers added together again. Okay, that's all for today. So whatever I did not do in these notes is going to be what you guys do for the go formative. So work on those. And then that's it. See you guys tomorrow.